Have you ever felt like the more you think deeply, the more isolated you become? That the more you understand, the less people want to listen? It's not just in your head. Society has always feared deep thinkers, not because they are wrong, but because they see what others don't want to. History proves it. From Socrates to Galileo to Tesla, brilliant minds have been ridiculed, silenced, or ignored, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they made people uncomfortable. Schopenhauer, one of the most brutally honest philosophers, believed that intelligence itself was a curse, one that isolates those who see the world too clearly. But why does this happen? Why does society resist those who think differently? The answer lies deep within human psychology. Think about this: when you stand next to someone who is physically strong, you don't necessarily feel weak. You admire their strength. When you meet someone who is rich, you might envy them, but you don't feel personally attacked. But when you encounter someone who is intellectually superior, something strange happens. Psychologists call this the mirror effect. A deep thinker does not just introduce new ideas, they reflect back the limitations of those around them, and people don't forgive that easily. The mere presence of someone who thinks deeply can make others feel inadequate, even if the deep thinker says nothing at all. But why does this happen? Why does intelligence, more than any other kind of superiority, provoke such discomfort? To understand this, let's consider how our minds process different forms of superiority. When someone is physically stronger, we might see them as a leader or protector. When someone is wealthier, we might admire their success or aspire to achieve something similar. These qualities, strength, wealth, beauty, are external. We recognize them, but they don't necessarily challenge our core self-perception. However, intelligence operates differently. Unlike physical strength or material wealth, intelligence is deeply tied to identity. We define ourselves by our thoughts, our beliefs, our understanding of the world. When we meet someone who thinks on a deeper level, someone who questions what we take for granted, it can feel like a direct attack on our sense of self. Instead of admiring intelligence, many people subconsciously resist it. Not because the deep thinker is arrogant or dismissive, but because their very presence forces others to confront their own limitations. This is why, throughout history, deep thinkers have been pushed to the fringes of society. Their insights don't just challenge ideas, they challenge egos. And human beings, by nature, will do almost anything to protect their ego from discomfort. Take a moment to reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever tried to introduce a deep or complex idea in a casual conversation only to be met with blank stares or awkward silence? Have you ever noticed how people quickly shift topics when discussions move beyond surface-level chatter? This is not just coincidence. It's a defense mechanism. When people encounter a deep thinker, their mind goes into self-preservation mode. Instead of being curious, they resist. Instead of engaging, they dismiss. This is why intellectuals, philosophers, and visionaries often find themselves isolated, not because they want to be alone, but because society pushes them away. Interestingly, studies show that confidence is often valued more than intelligence in social settings. People are naturally drawn to those who project certainty, even if their ideas are shallow. This is why charismatic but simplistic thinkers gain more influence than deep thinkers who speak with nuance. History is full of examples: populist leaders, motivational speakers, and viral influencers who thrive by telling people what they want to hear, rather than challenging them to think critically. Meanwhile, those who question widely accepted beliefs often struggle to find a broad audience. This is the paradox of intelligence: the more someone seeks truth, the more they become disconnected from the majority. The mirror effect does not just reflect society's limitations, it highlights why society resists change in the first place. But the question remains: if intelligence is so threatening, is there scientific proof that people actually fear it? Modern neuroscience backs this up. Studies show that when people feel intellectually inferior, their brain's amygdala, the region responsible for fear and threat detection, becomes highly active. In simple terms, deep thinking is not just intimidating, it triggers a primal survival response, similar to what we feel when facing danger. But why does intelligence activate the same fear circuits as a physical threat? The answer lies in how human brains evolved. For most of human history, survival depended not on being the smartest person in the room, but on being accepted by the group. Our ancestors thrived in tribes where social harmony meant safety. Being rejected by the group could mean death, as isolation led to vulnerability. This is why human brains are wired for social acceptance over intellectual pursuit. When someone highly intelligent enters a social setting, they unknowingly disrupt the tribal balance. Their presence challenges existing ideas, social norms, and group dynamics. This triggers the brain's defense mechanism, as if facing a potential enemy rather than just a deeper thinker. This is why many deep thinkers feel isolated, not because they lack social skills, but because their intelligence makes them stand out in a world that values fitting in over standing out. A 2021 study at Stanford University uncovered something even more shocking: the rejection of deep thinkers is context-dependent. When people interact with an intellectual one-on-one, they feel less threatened. But in group settings, the threat response spikes dramatically. Why? Because social status becomes more important in groups. People don't just react to intelligence itself, they react to how others perceive them in comparison. If someone feels outshined by a deep thinker, they instinctively try to undermine or exclude them to protect their social standing. This explains why deep thinkers often find genuine conversations in private settings but struggle to engage in large social environments. Psychologists have identified several cognitive biases that further explain why intelligence is often met with resistance. The Dunning-Kruger effect: people with low ability often overestimate their intelligence, while highly intelligent people tend to doubt themselves. This creates friction. Those who know little often believe they know more than they do, leading them to dismiss deeper thinkers. Status quo bias. The human brain prefers familiar ideas over new, complex truths. Intelligence often introduces disruptive thoughts, which make people uncomfortable. The backfire effect: when people are confronted with information that contradicts their beliefs, they don't change their minds, they double down on their existing views. Deep thinkers often face this reaction when they introduce challenging ideas. In the digital age, social media has amplified this rejection of intelligence. Algorithms prioritize engagement over depth, meaning that controversial, emotionally charged content spreads faster than thoughtful, well-reasoned arguments. Take a look at the most viral content: simple, catchy, and often misleading sound bites outperform nuanced discussions. The more intellectual someone is, the harder it is for them to compress deep ideas into bite-sized, viral-friendly content. As a result, society increasingly favors entertainment over enlightenment, making it even more challenging for deep thinkers to find widespread acceptance. So what does this mean for deep thinkers? The rejection of intelligence isn't just social, it's biological, psychological, and cultural. It is built into human nature, reinforced by group dynamics, and magnified by modern technology. This doesn't mean deep thinkers should stop sharing their ideas. But it does mean they need to understand the forces working against them. But if society resists intelligence, what does it actually embrace? The answer lies in comfort, a world where predictability is preferred over truth. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most brutally honest philosophers in history, believed that intelligence is not a gift but a curse. Unlike other thinkers who saw intelligence as the key to success, Schopenhauer argued that the smarter a person is, the more they will struggle to connect with society. But why? What makes intelligence such a burden? Schopenhauer's philosophy was built on a concept he called the will, a blind, irrational force that drives all human behavior. According to him, most people live their lives controlled by the will to live, meaning they seek pleasure, comfort, and survival above all else. However, highly intelligent people operate differently. Instead of blindly following instincts, they develop the will to truth, an insatiable desire to understand reality, even if it leads to discomfort. Regular people seek pleasure and avoid difficult truths. Deep thinkers seek truth, even if it leads to pain and isolation. This creates a fundamental disconnect between intellectuals and the rest of society. Where most people find meaning in relationships, entertainment, and routine pleasures, deep thinkers often feel disillusioned with these things, seeing them as distractions from deeper existential questions. Schopenhauer believed that the more a person understands human nature, the harder it is for them to relate to others. They see through lies and deception. Most social interactions involve small talk, status games, and polite dishonesty. And deep thinkers who value truth over appearance often struggle to participate in this. They crave depth, but society favors simplicity. Most people prefer surface-level conversations, while deep thinkers crave meaningful discussions. This makes it difficult for them to engage in everyday interactions without feeling bored or disconnected. They recognize the futility of human desires. Schopenhauer saw desire and ambition as illusions. He believed that most people chase money, power, and relationships. But deep thinkers often question the very purpose of these pursuits. This makes them appear distant or indifferent to what excites the majority. This is why intelligent people often feel misunderstood, alienated, or even resented. Their mere presence forces others to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves, and most people would rather avoid that. Schopenhauer compared intelligence to a heightened sense of awareness, a blessing that feels more like a curse. He wrote, "A high degree of intellect tends to make a man unsocial." His reasoning was simple: the more you understand, the less you can ignore. The more aware you are of the world's flaws, the harder it is to find happiness in it. The more you think deeply, the lonelier you become. For Schopenhauer, happiness and intelligence were inversely related. He believed that ignorance, not wisdom, was the true key to happiness. This is why deep thinkers throughout history, like Nietzsche, Pascal, and Kafka, have often struggled with depression, existential crises, and social isolation. Schopenhauer did not just diagnose the problem, he also offered solutions. He believed that while intelligence leads to loneliness, there are ways for deep thinkers to cope with their isolation. Embrace solitude. Schopenhauer saw solitude not as a punishment but as a privilege. He believed that deep thinkers should use their alone time for intellectual and creative pursuits, rather than seeking validation from society.